Alright, inside the GOTEK box is actually just a GOTEK card, and the GOTEK card, as you can see, just is nothing more than an interface. However, there's a processor with RAM on board, and what is essentially going on is when you choose a virtual floppy here, this processor reads from the floppy drive the virtual floppy's worth of data and puts it in memory. And I'm not sure if this is the memory or if the memory's on board. I believe probably this is the memory, actually. So this holds your virtual floppy and presents it to this port here, and so that's what the synthesizer or the embroidery machine or whatever else, maybe it's even a PC that you're doing this to, but probably an embedded machine that uses a floppy as its data storage. Either way, the machine thinks it's looking at a floppy. What it's really looking at is contents of RAM. Now, as long as the machine isn't accessing the drive, it's okay for this guy to pull a fast one. You push this button and select a different virtual floppy. It loads that different section off of the flash drive into the RAM, but obviously it can't swap that information if this guy over here is looking. That's kind of a layman's description of it, but that is how it works on this. So as long as the synthesizer instrument external device is actually actively accessing the data lines, then this guy is prohibited from switching its floppy. That's just good design on their part. They didn't want to create some crazy chaos and corruption. They'd probably crash your synthesizer if that happened. So it's a good thing that, in fact, this device protects itself against doing that. So the problem here is, how do you get around this? Are you stuck with only one virtual floppy? It kind of defeats the whole purpose. I did a bunch of experimentation, though. And if you take a look in the back here, we've got essentially a jumper block. And this jumper block, there was only one jumper enabled. And you can see this. Let me turn this around. You can see it better. That's the S1 jumper, is the one that's actually in place. So, you know, you don't need a manual, and of course this guy doesn't come with one, so there was no luck there. You don't need a manual to figure this out. S1 and S0 are the actual selects for drive 0 and drive 1, I believe. So whether this is going to be A drive or B drive, from back in the old days when you had an A drive and B drive floppy. So that's what that is. Now the other jumpers I wasn't sure about. I thought maybe there was some sort of jumper signal one could use to control the pins, and certainly on other floppy emulators I've seen these jumpers in other designs do things like change the polarity of one of the pins for really old PC floppy compatibility, what's so-called Shugart format that they used, protocol that they used originally. But you know what? None of that is necessary. I did a bunch of experimentation with my XP80 and this device plugged in, and I discovered that all you got to do is this. Have this in when you are using the virtual floppy. If you want to change a virtual floppy, if you just simply pull the enable off, then it's no longer enabled. The drive effectively goes offline to the Roland. The Roland knows that it's gone offline. Like, the Roland handles it gracefully. And you change the floppy. That updates the memory here. Now it's presenting a different virtual floppy. You put this jumper back in, and the Roland wakes up and says, oh, rereads the drive and sees the new virtual floppy. And to the Roland, it's like you changed a floppy disk. So that is a way of getting this to work. Now, obviously, you can't be reaching back here, because once we've installed this inside the synthesizer, that's not doable. But, of course, as you probably imagined, well, all we need is a way of breaking this connection and then reestablishing it. And, of course, what is something that does that? A switch. Breaks the connection, reestablishes it. Two little wires that run to these little pins, and we have a switch. And the added bonus of this switch is that it also has an LED built in. And there are the terminals for the LED. And this guy is plus 5 volts. If we take a look, can we get closer and see? There it is right there, plus 5 volts on that pin. So I can steal a bit of 5 volt off of that pin. I'm going to run it through a current limiting resistor, obviously, to stop it from blowing this LED to Kingdom Come. You have to limit the amount of current. This one is standard LED. It's rated at 20 milliamperes on the package. So at any rate, that's no big deal. 20 milliamperes translates at 5 volts to 150 ohms. And yeah, I looked up the formula. I'm not like some technological brain man. I'm sure as the techs who are watching this will know. I'm an engineer by training, but I am not a tech by training. The tech stuff I'm just picking up as I go along. And there is a big difference between an engineer and a tech, and that is an engineer will burn himself with a soldering iron and a tech won't. So, sorry guys, but that's my experience. Now, of course, there are engineers who are phenomenal techs, no doubt about it. And some of my friends from school were techs, graduated from tech school, and then they became engineers as well, and those guys were unstoppable. So it's not mutually exclusive. But what I am saying is I myself am not a super tech guy. Everything is self-taught for me, so as far as the tech side of things is concerned. Anyway, let's have a look here. This switch is a bit big for my liking, but it has all of the features I like, and I think it's kind of cool. Another thing we're going to look at doing is making this black, and whether we use paint or we use a different trick. I'm going to try actually a dirty trick right now and see if it works. I'm thinking maybe just a Sharpie might do the trick. I'm going to try it on the back side of the case, and if it does a decent job tinting it to black, then great. If not, then we'll resort to using some sort of spray paint. Probably delivered from an airbrush, I wouldn't doubt, because I got one of those. At any rate, enough of that stuff. I'm now going to see about cutting the door so that I can fit this in, and we'll go to the next level.